Good morning. Welcome to Aspire. We're very grateful you chose to be with us, and we have something very special in our new next segment of 8 programs. We're going to be dealing mainly with some of the most beautiful of all teachings that have ever been given to us. They were given to us by Jesus on the Mount, and they're called the Beatitudes. These Beatitudes are a work of art. They're succinct teachings that offer us insight into our own spirituality. In the first part of Aspire this morning, we're going to be dealing with Blessed are the poor in spirit. What does it mean to be poor in spirit? And then in the second half of Aspire, we're going to have as our guest Brian Jameson, our past life regressionist, whom many of you wrote in about and had many questions about. So we're going to have some audience participation and a very important program for you on Aspire this morning. Thanks for being with us, and stay tuned as we go into the center right now before the congregation at Unity of Escondido. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. Thank you very much. We're going to do a very special thing this morning. We're going to be dealing with a very dramatic teaching, one that Jesus gave to us, and we're going to look at it from many different angles. But I want to begin, and I don't really know if after that little introduction and after your kind response, if you're going to be so happy with what I'm about to say. But really, religion has been humankind's greatest problem. Now, I don't profess to be a religionist. I'm not in the business to be a religionist. I'm here as a teacher to offer you some insights into yourself. And if you look at the great masters, the masters such as Jesus, you will find out that they didn't come to teach us religion. I know this whole idea doesn't sound very popular right now, but if you will look within yourself, I think there are many of you out there in the viewing audience, as well as the many people that sit before us here, who are up to here with religion in the form that we have been given in this modern day society. We hear such things like that we are sinful by our nature, that there's something innately wrong with us. And yet, Jesus never taught this kind of thing to us. So for those of you, those diligent students of the universe, those diligent students of truth who seek to take your life a little further, this special introduction to one of the most beautiful teachings that has ever been given to us, called the Beatitudes, is a gift from me to you. And I want to say this to you as kind of a preamble. I am not the only word on this. My ideas and my concepts have brought some light and some inspiration to me. We've tried to bring light into this world, all of us have, through some very loving motives, but more light is necessary. And Jesus gave us that light in something called a beatitude. These beatitudes are not religious things. They have nothing to do with religion. Religion is something that is man-made. Religion is something that we have created out of ego, out of a sense of, well, manipulation even. We've been very manipulative about our religions of this day, of this era. If you look up the word religion in the Webster's Dictionary, you will find it has a very interesting meaning. It's an institutionalized set of religious beliefs, attitudes, dogmas, and theories. That's how Webster's defines it. An institutionalized belief, religious theories. How can God be possible in all of that? Did Jesus come to give us rules? You know, rules are so very fragile, and they can be broken so easily. The ramifications of them are painful to us. Let me give you an example. There's a story about a minister who was sending a Bible to a friend of his, and he wrapped it up and put it in a parcel, took it to the post office to send it off. And as he offered it to the postal service, they said, "Is there anything in here that's breakable?" And the minister laughed and said, "Yes, the 10 Commandments." It's very sad to think that commandments or things such as are written in the Bible could be so easily broken. But they can be. They're very fragile, and they have to be taken with a great deal of respect. The teachings on the Mount are a pathway to perfection. They are a pathway to spiritual unfoldment. And they must be understood in that light. Please understand something directly. These teachings are not sermons. The teaching on the Mount is often known of as the Sermon on the Mount. It is not a sermon at all. Again, I use Webster's as a reference. A sermon is a speech on conduct or duty. That's how Webster's defines it. Now listen, Jesus never offered us a speech on conduct or duty. He never told us what we should do and what we should not do. He never said this is right and this is wrong. He offered us spiritual insight. He offered us an opportunity to find ourselves as a spiritual being. He was not here to be dictatorial or to be religious. He was here to be spiritual. Let's look at one of the first and great Beatitudes. And again, this is a difficult one for us. Sometimes it's difficult for us to understand it. It sounds like a paradox, and all great masters teach in paradox. The teaching is this: blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Very interesting teaching. He starts out with one of the most dramatic of all teachings, to be poor in spirit. And that's a turnoff for us in this culture, in this country. The word poor. Who wants to be poor? Does that sound like something that is exciting to you? To be poor in spirit. Now, I know 2,000 years have passed, but what he is saying here is very profound. Many people of a religious nature think that poor in spirit means that to be poor is to be spiritual. And that's not true. That has made us extremely literal. To be poor is not to be spiritual, but to be poor in spirit is something very unique. It is a unique sense of egolessness, if I may use a word that I've just invented. It's my word, and I guess I can use it the way I want to use it. It is to release our ego. Let me explain to you. The word poor in spirit, what does that mean? You know, there comes a time in our lives somewhere, and I don't know when it will come for you, but it has certainly come about in my own life recently, where everything that we have lived for and everything we have done seems to bring about a sense of futility. Buddha put it very well. There are 4 different types of people that learn in this world. The first person is the person who learns and needs the whip to the marrow of the bone. He's like a racehorse jockey who is riding a fantastic thoroughbred, and the only way the thoroughbred will run is if the whip is to the marrow of the bone. And that's the way a lot of us are. We need lessons that are very painful before we learn anything. There's another kind of racehorse that people represent in their learning process, and that is the one who needs the whip to the skin and feels it there. There is a third one who only needs the shadow of the whip. But the greatest way to learn is not to need a whip at all, but to learn out of the sincerity of our soul. To be poor in spirit is to come to a very important point in life where we let go. There are 2 ways we learn. Please remember this and never forget this. And I know this doesn't sound very exciting in the beginning, but it's very true, and a lot of us have learned this way. And we learn it this way. First comes pain. Pain is a very necessary teacher for some of us. It is through pain that we learn many of the things that we are doing in life are self-destructive. Many people have blamed pain on God and saying, God inflicted this pain on me. God does not inflict pain on anyone. Whenever we transgress the laws of life, pain will be the result. And the second great teacher after pain comes futility. Futility is important. If I know how futile my actions have been, if I realize the futility of myself through my attitude and through my belief system, then I come to a point where Jesus said, the person who is seeking the kingdom of heaven, the person who is seeking to walk the spiritual pathway will find it in one beautiful moment when they are ready to be poor in spirit, when they are ready to look at themselves and say, I choose no longer to be so willful. Remember the teaching that Jesus gave on the poor in spirit? He put it so beautifully, so simply. He said, I of myself, I can do nothing. It is my Father within me which doeth the work. That is poor in spirit. Jesus is saying when you've had enough futility, when you've been the racehorse that has hurt themselves to the marrow of the bone, and now you are ready to learn the ways or the pathway of life, of goodness. When you are ready for that particular moment, you will be poor in spirit, desireless, the ambition to move ahead in life and to try to make a name for yourself and to be what people call of as a recognized figure now diminishes. You know, spiritual individuals who learn a great deal in life learn it not because they sit down and learn it from their head. You can learn many things from your head, but it is your heart that is the great teacher. To be poor in spirit is to realize the futility of living from our intellect, from living from our pride, from living from our arrogant ego. It is a point of humility, of humbleness, of gentleness. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed is the person who is no longer so overly ambitious about what they have, what they gain. Blessed is the person who is able to see a new reason for life, a reason for life that is different than what most people seek after. No longer do you seek out of the flesh. No longer do you seek to live in the future. No longer do you seek to live out of your mind, your intellect. But you begin to do something that is far more beautiful. You begin to touch your soul, and you begin to learn because you trust in God. There is an innate goodness in every person who sits in this room and every person that's in this audience. There is innate perfection within us, but we will never find it if we are so arrogant and egotistical as to believe that it is in our mind. It is found in our heart. And to listen to our heart means that we must be very quiet, very serene, and peaceful. I'm sure when Jesus gave this concept of blessed are the poor in spirit, that many people didn't understand, as many people now do not understand. In this country today, in religion today, we have taught people to be ambitious, to be desirous. If you don't believe the way I do, something is wrong with you. If you don't believe in the things that I say are true, something is wrong with you. And we've used religion as a form of manipulation. Jesus never taught religion as manipulation. He didn't teach religion. He taught spirituality. That's why he said to us that the work was for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. This is a gentle work. In a way, it's a rebellious work. Not rebelling against people, not rebelling against institutions, but a rebellion against our own self, that old self that lived out of ego and fear. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the humble, those who seek to look within themselves to find their answers, for they shall see God. I'm so grateful you chose to be with us. We have something very special coming up, an interview with Brian Jameson. Please don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to the second segment of Aspire. Truly, one of the most interesting people we've ever had on this program is the man who sits to my left, Brian Jameson, who is a past life regressionist. Brian and I feel an attachment to you. I cannot help but feel that. We feel very kindred spirits here. And on this segment of Aspire, I thought what we would do is I'd ask a few questions and then let the audience ask their questions. Hopefully they will be the ones that you in the home are thinking about, maybe, and we'll have some time to share. Brian, the last time you were here, we got a lot of mail on you, and people wanted to know, why should I go have a past life regression experience, and what kind of therapy is that? And I didn't really feel qualified to tell them. What kind of people come see you? What are they looking for?
Oh, the average person is looking for answers. The demographics of my clientele would be, on the average, women between the ages of 30 and 50. It seems like women are more interested in exploring the inner depths of themselves, getting some answers, than a lot of guys are, because the guys out there fighting the corporate world, etc. A woman has a little more time to think about things, and I think they do, yeah.
Yeah. How about their intuitive nature? Do you think they're more in touch with that?
I think they're more willing to let that go, to really experience that than most men, because we talk about women's intuition, not men's intuition. The reason they come to me, will run the gamut. Some people, it's just simple curiosity. You know, they read Shirley MacLaine's book out on a limb or something, and they think, well, gee, I wonder if there's something to that, and did I live before, etc.
Yeah, oh, I want to do that, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
was I
what
ever a cat?
Yeah.
So you're going to find that kind of a person that's going to come strictly out of the for the sake of curiosity. And
Yeah.
then there are other people that have some very severe problems. They notice a pattern in their lives of relationships, people coming into their lives, relationships being formed and then dissolved over and over and over again, or they'll have a phobia. They're afraid of dogs, they're afraid of heights, they're afraid of going into the water, that kind of thing.
The one in the water.
So.
That's one of the classic stories that you tell. Will you please tell our audience, tell our viewing audience?
There was a lady who came. She was 64 years old, and to the best of her knowledge, she couldn't remember ever having taken a bath in this lifetime. A sponge bath, yes, but as far as showers, bathtub baths, that was out. She was afraid to get near the water when she went to the ocean. She was apprehensive about crossing a bridge if water was involved. So obviously to say, I mean, her life was a little limited. She went through a lot of right guard. Not really. She took care of things nicely. Anyway, we wanted to find out, she wanted to find out, is there any past life reason for that? Because she was always apprehensive about getting near water. And so we shot her back into a lifetime 176 years ago in Switzerland. She was a little girl about a little over 3 years old. And she and her brother, who at that time was about 14 or 15 years old, they were out walking across one of these footbridges that spanned a very fast-running mountain stream. And as a prank, he grabbed her, flipped her up in the air, grabbed her by the heels, and held her over the edge of the bridge and let her watch the water come rushing down toward her. The water caught a few strands of her hair, and after 10 or 15 seconds of being totally terrified, he picked her back up, put her on the bridge, said he was only kidding, that he wasn't going to really drop her in the water and watch her die or any of that stuff. And of course, she felt fine. And then in this lifetime, as a small child, she lived in southern Missouri with her family. And she and her baby brother were taking a bath in one of those tin tubs in the middle of the kitchen like they used to have, like you see in Clint Eastwood movies. And the two of them are in there taking a bath. She's a little over 3 years old. Her brother is younger than she. And as a prank, baby brother splashed water in his sister's face. And she went into a panic attack right there and then. And that was the end of it. She had to be hauled out of the bathroom. And it turns out, as the fates would conspire, guess who baby brother is this time? He's her older brother from the past life. So there was a trigger. And I find usually there's a trigger. There's something that will set somebody off.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
So after that, now I understand she's having problems getting out of the shower ever. She took a...
Thank God.
Took a ride on the, I think it's the Delta Queen out of New Orleans with her daughter a couple of weeks after the regression, and is feeling wonderful, which is the whole idea, is to confront that fear, move into it, realize that it's just a shadow, and release it. I think that's what past life regression is all about, or at least how I see it.
Questions from the audience?
Yes.
Right here.
A couple of weeks ago at UCLA Medical Center, on the 7th story, I was looking over the balcony, and I'm afraid of heights, and I'm kind of having that experience. And I remembered, Brian, I was wondering if I was regressed, would I have to go through the experience of falling from wherever I must have fallen, and I'd be horrified, to try that.
Well, that's an assumption. The assumption is that that fear comes from falling, all right? And quite often that's not the case. It can be some minor incident, okay, that would trigger, you're looking over the balcony like that, could trigger that fear, but the fear is already there. And we're always afraid of something that's going to happen to us, not something that has. It's too late to worry about something that has happened to you. And I think the soul has no past, present, or future. It is always functioning in the present tense. So it can buy into some fear from a past life and bring that into the present life, only to be reactivated here because of some incident. And yet it has nothing to do with falling, possibly. Maybe it's just a case of you stumbled once, broke your neck, and it was falling 6 feet. that could be triggered. So you go back and re-experience how it felt to get your neck broken, and that's the end of it. As far as being terrified, when I was a child, we used to go to Saturday afternoon matinees. There were horror movies on Saturday afternoons. And once in a while, it would get a little sticky, and we don't want to chicken out. We like to stay there with the rest of the guys, see? But once in a while, I'd have to get up and go out for popcorn. So it's the same thing in this process. You always realize that you can get up and stop the process at any time.
Was it really popcorn?
No.
No. Another question. Yes, Ellen.
The question is, can anybody be regressed?
Yes.
I believe anybody can go through the process. The success rate is not 100% with my process. It's only about 98% effective. So there are approximately 2% of the people that I come in contact with that are unable to be regressed via my method. But then there are many other methods. Mine is non-hypnotic. There's always a deep hypnotic trance. So I'd say the odds are definitely in favor of most people being able to be regressed.
Being a person who was in it, I can tell you feel absolutely safe. You're always in control, and if it ever got hairy, you could always pull out. And that's the difference.
Yeah. I hope that answers your
And
question.
he does press the point with you. Other questions? There's one up here. There.
I'd like to find out about dreams. I have a recurrent dream about being in the catacombs of Rome, and the lions, I have escaped, and I'm still in there, and the lions are still after me.
And you're asking me whether that could be a past life
Yes.
thing. The answer is yes. It could be. It wouldn't necessarily be, but it could be. Quite often, past life experience will surface in dreams, especially if it has to do with something that's going on in your life now. If you brought some fear in with you, all right, that fear will just lie there to be activated, and it's going to have an effect upon you. In metaphysics, we say like attracts like. So if you have fear in consciousness, then you're going to attract to yourself conditions which are going to create more fear or activate the old fear. And so it could be that you brought a charge of fear in with you from that, and your dreams would be one way through which the higher self could vent that fear and release it and show you there's nothing to be afraid of.
Do you know of anyone who's ever regressed themselves back to their very existence?
Back to their first awareness of existence? Oh yeah, that was quite common when I first began this work about 17 years ago, because I was curious about that. What were we before we were what we are now? So I would regress people back to their first awareness of I am something. And without exception, and I did that with a couple of 300 people because I was curious, and without exception I found that they were light. You are light. We are light beings, and we just happen to have forgotten that somewhere along the line and think that we're human. We are just manifesting as human, but in fact we're eternal.
I want to thank you, Brian. Our time is
Right.
up. I enjoyed having you with us, and
Again.
we'll have you back.
Love
Thank
to.
you, ladies and gentlemen. That was good. Thank you. I wish we had more time.